Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And probably the most important event is that Zelensky is going to visit the United States of America. And the purpose of this visit is that the United States and the senators allowed Zelensky to speak with them, and according to information we have, Zelensky will address US senators on the eve of the vote on further aid to Ukraine, the Hill. The speech is scheduled for today on the 5th of December, but the vote must take place December 6th. So, at stake is an aid package worth more than 61 billion. I'm not saying that Zelensky is going to get money, but because of the fact that he was allowed to talk with the US senators, obviously he will get something. Maybe he will get like 4 or 5 billion, and this money will be enough to hold to continue the to continue the war with the Russians for the next few months, maybe even more. So this is very interesting. But when talking about the situation in the Senate, obviously we should talk about the person by the name of Lindsey Graham, who does 180 and now claims he's America first and wants to secure the border. So this is his talks, and he's a very famous one. We know this, very important person in the US policy. But if when talking about this person, I'll remind you that just 6 months ago he arrived in Kiev and he was saying that United States of America were making the best investments ever, best money ever, because the Russians were dying. So this is the thing he was talking about 6 months ago, and now he's saying completely different things. So we'll see whether the Zelensky managers are able to get some money or not, because this will determine the further situation in Ukraine and the next few months of clashes, and it will give us the answer whether the Ukraine is going to collapse before the new year. When talking about the common situation in Ukraine, Zelensky still haven't provided Zelensky any plan for campaign of 2024. So that's why Zelensky started to talk with some generals and officers, communicate with some commanders bypassing Zelensky. At least we have this information from some sources. So obviously Zelensky will be replaced. And Zelensky is not going to have elections. So we'll see. Now let's move to the situation on the ground. We have a lot of very interesting updates. Some of them are coming from Kherson direction. Today the Russians published a very interesting video. For example, on this footage, on these scenes, you can see how the Russian aircraft Su-30 or Su-35 or Su-34, I'm not sure for exactly the model, launched 4 guided bombs at once. So and half a year ago, the Russians were able to attack the Ukrainian positions just with 1 guided bomb from 1 plane. Later, the Russians managed to improve their aircrafts and they were able to attack using 2 guided bombs at once. Now, as you can see, the Russians start using 4 guided bombs at once from 1 airplane. And the Russians are saying, at least the author of this video says, that the Russians are working on the next improvement of their planes, and they're planning to start using 6 guided bombs from 1 plane in the very near future. When talking about Krynki foothold, we have some updates from the Krynki. The Ukrainians managed to rotate personnel to replace the damaged and almost reduced tier 35th Marine Brigade, and they replaced them with 37th Marine Brigade. But from one side, maybe this is good that the Ukrainians are able to hold the foothold, no matter that, regardless the situation that the foothold is getting less and less. But from the other side, we understand that the Ukrainians reducing and destroying by themselves the most powerful and the most experienced brigade ever. I'm talking about 35th, 36th, 37th, 38th, 25th, 79th, 72nd, 94th, 95th Brigade, and so on, the most important powerful one. The Russians continue bombardment of Ukrainian forces in the vicinity of Sadovo, another area, another foothold that Ukrainians used to redeploy their forces from one bank of the river to another. So we see that everything is under complete Russian fire. The Ukrainians lose their soldiers not just on the bank of the river, on the Russian bank, they're also losing the Ukrainians on the enter point, exit point. The Ukrainians lose their soldiers in the forest. The Ukrainians lose their soldiers in the boats as well. Now we are moving further to Zaporizhia area, and we have lots of very interesting details. And first we got another footage from Stepnogorsk. On this video, we can see how the Russians were bombing the Ukrainian positions with multi-launch rocket systems, the northern part of the village. And the interesting part of this video that this is the second video from the same area in a row. If you remember, just yesterday we got the first update. Let's increase the numbers of updates since the 4th of December. This is the first video. Yeah, we got this video yesterday, and according to the author of this video, the Russians managed to discover the concentration of Ukrainian forces, and then they start bombing them with multi-launch rocket systems. So as I see, based due to the concentration of Russian fire against this territory, I understand that maybe the Russians do have some plans in this direction, and maybe the Russians are planning to start, let's say, their own offensive operation. As we discussed, the main reason, the main fact that the Russians can do this is that Ukrainians were forced to redeploy a significant number of forces from this direction in the area of Avdiivka and Bakhmut. So now there are some forces in this area. They try to hold the positions and the strongholds between Rabotine, Verbova and Novoprokopovka, but the Russians, as I understand, using FPV drones, have almost finished the job of clearing this territory from Ukrainian forces. I think that the days are numbered when the Ukrainians will be forced to leave this area. Furthermore, the Russian sources published the video of the dragon teeth in this area, the stronghold, the defense belt that the Ukrainians haven't managed to bypass. Obviously, this defense belt will move in history, and in hundreds of years, people will discuss and will analyze this situation. Now we are moving to Avdiivka direction because we also have some updates from this territory, and the most probably important thing is that if you follow TikTok or you have like shorts from YouTube, you're gonna see that more and more videos are coming from this area, from different forces, from different brigades, and all of them have the same topic, that the Ukrainians are leaving Avdiivka. For example, on this TikTok video, we can see how the soldiers of 53rd Mechanized Brigade, this one, published the video of how they were moving from Avdiivka, and they titled this video like Avdiivka goodbye and don't forget us, and they're moving from this area far away. Very happy guys that they understand that no matter, regardless the situation, they managed to survive. We also have some footage, some updates from northern part of Avdiivka. The Ukrainians published old video of October, very interesting one, how the Russian soldiers, Russian corps who fight for Ukrainians was fighting with the Russians along the railways. Very interesting video. I'm trying to show this video just because of very interesting application or interface that the Western countries use to control the clashes. We see the icons, we see something that shows the movement of soldiers. So very interesting technologies, very interesting interface, and as I understand, the Western countries in Ukraine do have lots of possibilities how to control the clashes, how to see the situation. See, on this video we also can see the icons above the Russian soldiers. So very nice technologies, obviously. When talking about geolocations, we have important geolocation from the northeastern part of Avdiivka. On this video we see the FPV drones of Ukrainian forces against the Russian positions. This is probably the first geolocation that confirms the Russian progress and the Russian control, at least over this territory. Now we are moving further to Bakhmut Artyomovsk direction. As you can see, we have lots of icons from this territory, and the most important updates is that the Russians, as a result of clashes during the previous days, managed to establish almost full control over the landfills, all over the fields between Bogdanovka, Hromova and Yagidna, and more and more sources, a lot of mappers have already reported that the Russians are sending more and more reinforcement in this area. And it's not like the reinforcements to let's say to replace, but this is like offensive reinforcements to start the attack at, let's say, the next days or something like this. Syria confirmed this, also Remy, I believe you are familiar with this blogger, Remylin23 also reported that several of Russian new brigades, including Storms, arrived in Artyomovskaya direction, so as I understand they're planning to continue offensive. Other Russian sources reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to improve their positions between Bogdanovka Bogdanova and Khromovo, and according to some Russian sources, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians established control over this territory. So from one side we see that the Russians do have some progress, they're pushing the Ukrainians, but if we take a look at topographical map, we're going to see that for now the Russians established control just over the let's say lowlands. Let's say that every single lowland currently is under Russian control. You see on this map, topographical map, the Ukrainian blue line. This is the main Ukrainian stronghold in this area, and this is the first stronghold that located on the first hills in this area, and this is the stronghold. This is the area of the stronghold. The Ukrainians withdraw their positions toward this area, and as I understand, they're going to give the final battle for this territory exactly on this hill. And if the Russians are able to conquer this territory, obviously we can talk about the complete collapse of Ukrainian defense belt in this area, and then the Ukrainians will be forced to step back further in direction of Chasov Yar. And furthermore, we got more details and some geolocations from Bogdanovka. On this video, for example, we can see how the Russian soldiers, stormtroopers, were entering the trenches and the tree lines let's say, in front of the village. This is the water reservoir, let's say, that located on the north. These are the tree lines. So this is the first confirmation, geolocated confirmation, that the Russians entered the final line. And the author of this video says that that was the video like at the beginning of offensive operation, and according to information he has, the Russians managed to move further inside of the Ukrainian defense belt. So this video was geolocated along this tree line, so the Russian soldiers on that video was moving along this area, and according to the author of that video, the Russians managed to bypass this territory, and basically the Russians have already established control over the first buildings in Bogdanovka, or maybe even more. So at least we have something from this direction which confirms some Russian progress. When talking about Klishchevka, we also have interesting update that the Russians managed to establish control over the tree lines and the trenches right in front of the hill 215.7. So this is the current Russian progress in this area. The Russians managed to cut the road that connects the main Ukrainian stronghold in Klishchevka itself using this road, and the Russians started let's say storming of the area with FPV drones. We will not this video because of significant number of casualties and dead bodies, but the Russians are about to start also another offensive operation in direction of the main stronghold of the Ukrainians in Klishchevka. And obviously, if the Russians are able to take control over this stronghold, if the Russians are able to establish control over this stronghold, the entire area might collapse automatically, and then nothing will be able to stop the Russians. When talking about Kupian and Sliman front lines, we also got update, at least the Russian official channels, like government channels like Russia Today, published like a video about the beginning of Russian greatest offensive operation or counter-offensive operation in the Crimean forest. We haven't received like real geolocations or videos, but the sources are saying that the Russians concentrated forces in this area as well, and basically they started their greatest winter offensive operation in this direction. So let's see whether it's true or not, but if it's true, we're going to receive some updates. And when talking about the Ministry of Defense report, we can say that this is like a real information, so maybe there is a progress of the Russians. But before I start making this video, we still haven't received the Uday diary video of the 19th day. Maybe he was killed, who knows, but if he wasn't killed, then he will publish the video, and probably the next video we're going to discuss the new numbers as well. And that's it for this video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.